Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and today I want to go completely off script. I haven't prepared a script for this video whatsoever. I just want to ad-lib basically. And this will be the first video ever that I've done no previous preparation for and are simply relying upon my knowledge. And the reason for this is because this video is going to be based almost entirely in conjecture, and it's basically looking at the hypothetical augmentations, cybernetics and enhancements that a potential Spartan-V class may receive. So let's get into this. Now straight off the bat, I think a Spartan-V class will be a natural evolution of the Spartan 2, 3 and 4 classes with augmentations and enhancements hopefully hybridized, including a whole set of new augmentations altogether. But I want to go a little bit further than that. If you consider the fact that the original Spartan 2 candidates were replaced by Flash clones. Now the Flash clones had their defects. Due to the speed in which they were grown, they ended up having major errors in their DNA base pairs, which meant that they degraded at ridiculously high rates, usually resulting in the death of the Flash clone within about 14.5 weeks. And it has actually been mentioned by a few people in the Discord that although the Flash clones are subject to these major errors, would cloning the long way round, so to speak, bear the same results, or will it be more akin to what we currently have in regards to cloning? Well, I thought on this long and hard, and I came to the conclusion that, logically speaking, if a Spartan-V class is going to be created, it's inevitably going to be done as a cloak and dagger black op created by the Office of Naval Intelligence once again, simply because the Spartan-IV program has kind of taken the heat and the attention off because it's the most publicly viewable Spartan program and practically everything about it is disclosed and above board. And I also realised that the situation that the Office of Naval Intelligence and the UNSC are being presented with as time goes on with the Spartan-IV program is very similar to what the UNSC was being presented with when we first had the insurrectionists rising to a point of fever pitch where the Spartan II program became a necessity. We've already seen Spartan-IVs who have defected to the insurrectionists and the rebels, and this can be for a few different reasons. One could be because they were actually insurrectionists or rebels beforehand, and as the colonies were being glassed, they had no other choice but to get into the UNSC military. And as a consequence of that, they made the sort of logical move to go from military into the Spartan branch, became Spartan-IVs, and now the war is over and things are settling down again. Their insurrectionist and rebel sympathies are once again boiling to the surface, and the other reason could be simply that they've been Spartan-IVs for such a large duration of time, they've seen the horrors on the frontier of the war, and as a consequence are naturally kind of developing rebel sympathies because they didn't go through the indoctrination that the Spartan IIs did to almost blindly follow orders. They can kind of make decisions for themselves, which is not to say the Spartan IIs can't, but they just didn't go through the same level of indoctrination. Now, if you consider that the Carver findings established that the rebels would rise up against the inner colonies, and it would basically spell out either complete and utter destruction of mankind, or at the very best, just force mankind into another Stone Age. And that was just with normal, unaugmented humans. The rebels were going to rise up, the Carver findings established it, so as a consequence to that, the UNSC and the Office of Naval Intelligence create the Spartan IIs as the ultimate kind of quote-unquote nuclear deterrent to stop the insurrections. Now they're being presented with a very similar situation, however this time the insurrectionists that they're dealing with are augmented Spartans, which puts it on a whole different level of lethality and danger to the inner colonies. The only logical consequence to this would be that the Office of Naval Intelligence will see that Spartan-IV or any Spartan asset becoming rogue is a massive security breach to both the Office of Naval Intelligence, the UNSC, and the safety of the inner colonies altogether. Again, the only logical action that an organisation like the Office of Naval Intelligence would take would be to create another program that is, again, completely black ops and completely off the record, that are counters to rogue Spartans. And this is the niche at which I think the Spartan-V program, in theory, could exist, although they might not even be called that. It might start off as a completely different name, but they might be integrated into the Special Forces as a Spartan-V division, so to speak, in a similar fashion to the way the Spartan IIs were originally created for killing insurrectionists and then integrated into the wider military as humanity's saviours. But how exactly does this play out? Well, going back to our conversation on cloning, yes, Flash clones create beings that have fundamental errors in their DNA base pairs, but doing it the long way round, growing a clone slowly, doesn't have such profound effects on their longevity. In fact, quite the opposite. You create a fully functioning being And this is where I think the Office of Naval Intelligence would start. They would basically grow their own Spartan-Vs. And what's interesting about that is that they can grow them to be the absolute pinnacle perfect human being. They can engineer their DNA to an exquisite level using techniques like the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technique. And since 2001 and the completion of the Human Genome Project, we now actually know the entire mapping of the human genome, which, let's face it, 500 years in the future is going to have some knock-on effect to medical science. It is because of this that I would theorise that a Spartan-V would actually start as a perfectly cloned human being. They would make changes to the human physiology to more comprehensively accommodate the augmentations and the function as Spartan killers. What's quite interesting is that almost the entirety of the original Spartan-2 augmentations can be made DNA-based. This includes the occipital capillary reversal, the carbide ceramic ossification, the catalytic thyroid implant, the muscular enhancement injections, and the superconducting fibrification of neural dendrites. But let's quickly go over these one by one. One of the most prominent alterations that I would make to a genome of a Spartan killer, should I be put in that position, would be to basically make the skeletal reinforcement augmentation, the carbide ceramic ossification, a natural mutation. Bones already develop by using a collagen matrix and then solidifying that with crystallized calcium. It's interesting that you can actually take a strontium supplement, and because strontium is so closely related to calcium, the body actually assimilates the strontium in exactly the same way, but it results in slightly denser bones. This has actually been used to treat osteoporosis, to give bone density to people who have natural deficiencies in their bone density due to osteoporosis. There's nothing to say that you can't alter the way in which the DNA creates bones in the first place to mean that you don't necessarily have to make them from a calcium base. In theory, you could program the DNA to use titanium oxide as well as calcium, thereby meaning that as the bones naturally develop through the person's life, they become naturally infused with titanium. Now, titanium is actually inert in the body, that's why they use it for surgical implants and the like. You can actually consume titanium and it has no negative effect in the body because it doesn't react with anything, it's biologically inert. That means that it could be picked up in things as simple as nettle tea, for example. Nettles have quite a high content of titanium, so drinking nettle tea, your body takes on quite high levels of titanium, but you effortlessly pass it because your body doesn't need it. Now, if your body was designed to take on titanium as a reinforcing structure in the crystalline matrix of your bones, your body would take it on, and your osteoblasts would use that titanium oxide to lay down foundational structure in your bones that make your bones nearly unbreakable naturally. And this also means that you don't have the concerns of the carbide ceramic ossification in that encasing the bone in a certain amount of metal actually separates the bone marrow from the body, and you can get red and white blood cell necrosis because your blood is not being replenished. Because this titanium is being laid down naturally by your own cells, your bones still have the tiny pores between the surface and the bone marrow, allowing the movement of blood from the marrow to the body. Even augmentations such as the superconducting fibrification of neural dendrites could in theory be made a DNA base. This could be achieved by programming the DNA to grow the nerves in the first place already supermyelinated. The myelin sheaths allow nerve impulses to travel through the nerves at the maximum velocity. The supermyelinated nerves of a Spartan results in a 300% increase in their reaction times, so making it so the individual is supermyelinated from before birth means that they have an intrinsic 300% increase in reaction time. Alterations to the MSTN gene can result in the protein called myostatin not being as present and as prevalent in the human body. Now, myostatin actually inhibits the growth of muscle to within certain tolerable limits, and there are examples of human beings alive, including Eddie Hall, who lack the myostatin protein, which means their muscles grow much larger and much more powerful than the average human being. This could be taken a step further again by actually using the protein complex that they used with the original Spartan-2 program, offset with this myostatin deficiency, leading to significantly more powerful muscles. As far as the catalytic thyroid implant is concerned, scientists estimate that about 80% of an individual's height is determined by their DNA sequence, so alterations to the DNA sequence that is responsible for height could lead to Spartans being naturally 7, maybe even 8 feet tall. The occipital capillary reversal augmentation allows Spartans to see in near perpetual darkness simply by boosting the blood flow to the back of the retina. The retina in humans actually has the capillaries that feed the photoreceptors in the eye that lay over the top of the retina itself. That's why eye glow looks red, because effectively the light is reflecting back through blood vessels. Inversion of the retina thereby means that the capillaries that feed the photoreceptors are actually now between the photoreceptors and the back of the eye, as opposed to being led on top of the photoreceptors. This in turn leads to the photoreceptors being able to take in more light because the capillaries aren't in the way. And again, in theory, there could be alterations to give the human eye tapetum lucidum, which is the eye shine that you see in a lot of carnivores like cats, dogs, and Riddick. And with that renders most of the actual surgical augmentations of the original Spartan-2 class to be completely and intrinsically integrated into the DNA of a Spartan-V. Many of the other genetic alterations that Spartans are given can be given to the unborn embryo. This means things like the telomerase rejuvenation therapy, thereby leading to slightly increased longevity, actually results in, well, what equates to a cellular immortality. The cells will divide perfectly every single time. The Hayflick limit of the cells will be defied because the telomerase doesn't get worn down over time, which means your cells just endlessly reproduce. So with much of these augmentations that were given to the original Spartan 2s, widely heralded as being the most powerful Spartans, now being integrated into the DNA base of the Spartan 5s, the Office of Naval Intelligence now just has to incubate these embryos and allow them to grow. Whether they allow them to grow over the gestational 9 months or actually allow them to grow further into childhood effectively is completely down to the Office of Naval Intelligence. It's already been made evident in Catherine Halsey's diary as well as in the book Halo the Fall of Reach that Spartans were actually given subliminal training to use their Mjolnir armour, and it seems relatively likely that memories can actually be implanted into a living brain, as was the case with the original Flash clones. This could circumnavigate the need to nurture and teach an infant from baby through until young child, with much of the knowledge that would have been accumulated over that time being almost pre-installed into the brain. From here, the Spartan 5s, the Spartan killers, could simply be trained in a very similar way to the way in which the other Spartan classes were, including the indoctrination to force them to follow orders almost blindly. Upon coming of age, they could still receive a large plethora of augmentations, but in this situation it would be more akin to the Spartan 4 augmentations, so they would receive many augmented organs, including lung augmentations, pancreas augmentations, digestive system augmentations, cardiac augmentations, circulatory and metabolic augmentations, implanted biosensor array, the Spartan neural interface. At this point, the Spartan 5s would be practically head and shoulders above nearly every Spartan class that has ever existed, and it would be at this point that the Office of Naval Intelligence would probably dispatch these soldiers with their own Skunkworks versions of Mjolnir and use them as their own personal hit squad, an anti-Spartan squad. Now yes, it does seem rather out there, but it's nothing compared to exactly how the Forerunners mutated and evolved their own species. Truth be told, I may have just indirectly described the warriors of ancient humanity, and to assume that the Office of Naval Intelligence is not capable or not willing to do something as dark as this is, indicates a gross misunderstanding of just what lengths the Office of Naval Intelligence will go to get a job done. I mean, case in point, why did the Office of Naval Intelligence keep DNA records of Spartans? One of the procedures detailed in the Spartan 4 augmentations in Project Orchid is the end cap augmentation. The Spartan is subjected to hormone regulation therapies and their bioprofile is archived. And this isn't the first time that the Office of Naval Intelligence have taken archives of the DNA of Spartans. They did the same thing with the Spartan 2s. This is detailed in Dr. Halsey's journal, where there are actually gene sequencing and DNA sequencing of Spartan 2s. What other use would they have to store so much information, so many DNA profiles of Spartans, if not to assess what makes Spartans the way that they are naturally, and utilize it to make something greater? Again, this whole video has been without a script, and it's just been effectively almost an ad-lib proposal as to what a Spartan 5 could be. I'm not saying it's what it's going to be. I'm not saying there may even be a Spartan 5 class, but I'm just hypothesizing on just what extent the Office of Naval Intelligence would use the knowledge they've gained over the entirety of the Spartan program so far, as well as outline the risks of rogue Spartans and detail the lengths they would have to go to silence them. I mean, let's be honest, they sent Fireteam Osiris, an entire team of Spartan 4s, to take down one Spartan-2. I mean, yes, he had Blue Team in tow, but it was his responsibility. It was his decision to take Blue Team AWOL, or rather they followed him. But it was Master Chief that Osiris were after, and they weren't even successful in that. So if numerous Spartan 4s decide to go rogue and have their rebel and insurrectionist sympathies boil over and fight for the rebels, then the Office of Naval Intelligence and humanity at large have a massive problem on their hands that can only be solved with something worse than Spartans. But again, this is all just conjecture, and from time to time I like to put a video out that has no other purpose other than to throw ideas around. So with that being said, now I've voiced my ideas, what do you think of the situation? Do you think Spartan 5s are going to be along those lines? Do you think they're not? What kind of augmentations do you think they'd have? I'd really like to hear what you have to say. Pop them in the comments, or even pop over to Discord and have a chat to me over there. Who knows, maybe the dialogue that we develop between ourselves I might make an entirely new video series on. Anyway, now I've done that with no script sat in front of me, I'm going to do my usual sign off. So this part is scripted. So that leaves me to say, thanks for watching. Stick your comments down below. I look forward to what you have to say. I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons, Sir Tenchi, the silent cartographer, Brian, Sebastian, Red Sea, Darian and Neek, the holders of the mantle, Ty, Black Biscuit, J Rabbit, Austin, Kaiser, Silex, Reclaimer216, The Revanche, Wolf Slim and Andre, my reclaimers, Zach, Deep Cover, Verbal Statue, Spesigo, Spartan A498, Guppy, Josh, Mickey, Bastion, Molshar, Slithery Tube Dude, Nightrise, Sierra G059 and Alfarius, my Metarchs, and all the other patrons that have jumped aboard to support the channel. You guys are awesome, and all this wouldn't be possible without you. If you like Halo Lore discussed to insane levels of detail, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you're told the second a new video hits the shelves. Be sure to support us on all major social media channels, including Discord, and if you really love the channel, consider heading over to Patreon and supporting the channel over there. It would mean the world to me and would free up more of my time for me to put into this content and other Halo-related goodness. Take it easy, everyone, and find peace in the domain.